What is going on, everybody? Welcome here to the first official CV1 show since the regular season started. Chris, back off of IR.
I was on medical leave for a little bit. Happy to be back. Happy to be kicking off the show week 5.
Yep, first appearance since the preseason, but here we are nonetheless after week 4 of the 2025 NFL season. As we typically do, we're going to be doing our biggest takeaways. So Chris will start off this one as a Seattle Seahawks fan. One thing that I wanted to point out was how good Sam Darnold has looked this year, because we know that there was a lot of skepticism with Sam Darnold this year because he came from the Vikings offensive system. And JSN has looked really good too. I think he looked great last year, but he's kind of taken another step forward this year through the first quarter of the season. So Chris has better insight than me, so
yeah, I mean, coming out of the offseason, I was really happy about the signing. I was one of the people who was, I think, aware that those numbers that Darnold had last year were incredibly inflated. Mm-hmm. Obviously, playing with one of the best receivers to ever play football. But there was something there. You don't have one of those seasons by accident, and if you do, it's extremely rare for those cases to be, in the NFL. But Darnold's been good enough. I think he's looked like a starting quarterback, even like a good starting quarterback. And he's making JSN look like the guy that they had drafted him to be.
Yes.
We'll cut that out. What did you do?
I just I put on Do Not Disturb.
Okay.
Because I didn't want it buzzing.
Okay. But we know that.
Come on.
Hang on. Dude, you're messing me up.
Why? What? I didn't do anything.
I don't know. You're like on the table.
Okay, sorry.
We knew that the Seahawks were going to be a defensive-driven team this year, and that's exactly what they have been. They've been, besides maybe a little bit of Tariq Woolen, not disappointing whatsoever. They've got the great pass rush now that they've been desperately needing for the last few years. The secondary looks strong, and Nick Manwari is just about to come back in Week 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, Darnold, I was a little skeptical too, and I didn't want him back as a Vikings fan just because of how he played in the postseason, and Seahawks are on pace for that, so that's still to be seen what he looks like during that portion of the season. But I mean, throughout the regular season last year, he did everything that was asked of him and a little more, and I think he is doing exactly what is asked of him in this offense. Now, I don't think he has an offensive line in front of him that is elite by any means, or even good by any means. There are some Top 30, yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're not that good. And I thought that was going to be a huge issue with Sam Darnold because of how long it took him to get rid of the football. And he's just kind of 1, 2, 3 getting the ball out. And he's doing everything that he needs to do right now to put this team in a position to win games. I think he's aware of how good the defense is, so just don't mess up, essentially. And he's got the arm, he's got the smarts to be a good quarterback. We saw it last year, and he's picking up right where he left off. So through the first quarter of the season, I may have to eat my words on Sam Darnold, and I think the Vikings, if you kind of take money out of the equation, I'm sure they'd love to have him back as the quarterback for their team. Now, we're going to transition to Sunday's games. My first takeaway, I think the Ravens are screwed, and I thought this is one of the teams going into the season that I felt most confident about. And of course, you can never project injuries to happen, but beyond the injuries for this team, it's been a defensive problem. I think this offense has looked good, as many of us anticipated. I think Derrick Henry has had major fumbles that have literally costed them games, but the defense is not doing them any favors. You don't choke that game against Buffalo if your defense doesn't look as poor as it does. And you don't lose a handful of other games if your defense just plays slightly better. And so there's a lot that needs to be fixed. And again, like I just said, it is beyond the injuries for this team. You can't point the finger at, Matt Abike is not playing. I didn't feel like there was much of a pass rush before that. You were banking on the fact that Kyle Van Noy was going to have another career year at 32, 33 years old, and you're still waiting for guys like Odafe Owe to kind of break out and say, who is that other guy who's going to present a level of pass rush that the Ravens have been lacking these last few years. A good secondary does you a little bit, but a good pass rush can do you a lot. And we're seeing that now with this team that has really been ineffective up front. So I don't think that this is a thing that can be corrected throughout the middle of the season. I think where they are as a unit with Zach Orr as a defensive coordinator, you're not going to see much improvement throughout the year. And despite the Ravens putting up, 30-plus point performances, which more times than not in the NFL should result in victories, they haven't up until this point. And that's really concerning, considering that the Steelers are now 3-1 in that division as well. But what is your take on the Ravens?
I mean, the Steelers being 3-1. I mean, really. But I was not expecting. I don't think anybody was expecting the Ravens to be 3-1 through 4 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think many people were projecting them to finish the season with many more than 3 losses throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really surprising. Obviously they've had close games against like top of the league teams, right? But their defense looks really bad, and even their offense, they're putting up points, but they kind of look soulless to me.
Yeah, it does. And you know what I think it is? Is like they're still looking for somebody for Lamar to throw to. Like we've seen Quentin Johnson for the Chargers really emerge into the wide receiver that they were hoping he'd be. Zay Flowers, I don't think has really turned into that. I think he's a solid option, but he's not like your number one receiver. You feel threatened to take him away. They just have a quantity of options. That's why you see guys like Tez Walker getting the ball. You see guys like Tylan Wallace getting the ball. And then you see, they have a depth at the tight end position as well. But there's no one like, hey, like we can consistently throw it to Mark Andrews and get production out of him. We can consistently throw it to Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman and get consistent production out of them. I think that's what they're lacking.
I agree. I was just having this conversation with my dad last weekend where Zay Flowers could look like the best receiver on the planet, always open, doing whatever he does, and then he just disappears.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if it's a scheme thing, if it's a talent thing, maybe Lamar's not looking his way, but they do need a true game breaker at the receiving position. You look at all of the elite the elite quarterbacks in the league,
Mm-hmm.
they all have elite wide receivers, except for Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
But he's Josh Allen. So I really do think that Lamar Jackson needs a playmaker like that. Zay Flowers, like as you mentioned, a very, very solid 1B, maybe even one of the best 1Bs in the receiving group, but I don't know if he can be the true game breaker that the Ravens need.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, again, that's another one where I don't know where you're going to get that from if you're looking for it. And with the outlook of this season, at least through the first 4 weeks, I don't think it's time for the Ravens to hit the panic button, because I think as long as you have Lamar at quarterback, which they don't for the next few weeks, but I'm saying they will have him later on this season, you're never really out of it. But I don't know if you're in a position now to say, hey, we can give up some assets to try and bring in someone now to kind of fill that void that they're looking for.
Real quick,
AJ Brown?
Real quick, I was gonna stew on this. I've been stewing on this for a little bit. Real quick mock trades. I think that the Ravens could be either interested in an AJ Brown or maybe Chris Olave. Would be a very, very big buy low candidate.
Interesting.
I don't think they'd be giving up anything more than like a 3rd or a 4th round pick, especially with the injury history. But if he can stay healthy, I think Chris Olave is a very, very talented receiver.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting one, because he is coming up on a contract year pretty soon. And with AJ Brown, I think these are 2 realistic options for them to go after. But then, look, let's just assume that the Ravens are going to lose the next 2 games. You didn't win your last 2 with Lamar. And granted, they were against 2 really good teams in Detroit and Kansas City. But what makes you think that they're going to be any more productive offensively to keep up with the lack of defense with Cooper Rush? I don't see it. And if you're at the trade deadline and let's say you're 4-4.
Exactly. That's best case scenario right there.
Are you really going to trade for somebody at that point?
I think so.
You think so?
I think if you have a fully healthy team, you got to invest in your team.
But can that trade of bringing in AJ Brown or bringing in Chris Olave, does that do enough to overcome the fact that your defense might give up 30? Probably not. And that's why I don't think it's worth it.
But it'll be fun.
It's worth it.
It would be fun.
Oh, hey, they have D-Hop ready. That's fun, right? All right, moving on to the next one. Speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles keep finding ways to win, and we keep hearing this narrative of how boring their offense is to watch. And I talked about this last week. I said how I think it's only a matter of time before this team kind of crumbles apart, similar to how they did in 2023, because I just don't think it's sustainable to win games the way that they've won. And their defense, I think if you play a really high caliber team like they're going to see in the playoffs, it is not going to be good enough to compete with those teams. They're getting pressure, but only with certain looks. They're sending extra guys, or the quarterback is holding the ball too long because their coverage is really excellent down the field. Those aren't things that you can keep up consistently throughout the course of a game, let alone the course of a season. And Jalen Hurts, the big narrative around him this week is that he didn't complete a pass in the second half, which is I think partially Jalen Hurts, but also partially the lack of creativity that is being presented in this Eagles offense right now. We can all point the finger at Jalen Hurts, but A.J. Brown isn't producing either, and Saquon Barkley has taken a dip in production as well. That's not to say that any three of those players are bad, but when we're talking about all three of these guys going down in production, I don't think it's a coincidence. There is something larger here that is affecting those things, and I think we have to point towards the offensive schemes. But nonetheless, they're winning games, and that's all that matters. And like I said, do I trust this? No, not really. So I am honestly waiting for them to kind of just unravel at the end.
Exactly. And, you said that all of these great players, even Devontae Smith, who, had crazy high hopes out of the draft,
Mm-hmm.
is not having a great year this year. The whole offense is not having a great year, yet they're still undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is giving me a lot of flashbacks to maybe last year's Kansas City Chiefs, where you watch them, you're like, yeah, that defense is great.
That's a good comparison.
What are they doing on offense? They lose their best receiver in Rashee Rice. Isaiah Pacheco is running in dirt every year, or every snap that he's out there, and yet they still make the Super Bowl because they've been there. They know how to win, and I think that's what's gonna happen with the Eagles this year.
Interesting. So you're saying Super Bowl appearance and lose? Or are you just saying like they can make a serious run?
I think they could be competent playoff contenders this year.
And they should be. I think it's like one of those teams where I think them and the Lions I kind of viewed in the same spot, where they were good last year, they lost their coordinators, and I'm like, well, both of these teams are way too talented. Like, even if they have less innovative play callers on their sidelines, the team is too good to, like, they're going to out-talent other teams is basically what I'm saying.
And also, if they're 4-0 with these deficiencies, like, what happens when they do start clicking again?
That's true.
And they have before, so we know they could do it again.
Mm-hmm. Two different outlooks. I think it's not going to work out. Chris thinks it still can. We'll see how it goes throughout the rest of the season. And I forgot, we have to do this. We have to keep ourselves accountable with these takes to see what we look like at the end of the season. Not like record-wise, but like, hit or miss type thing.
Don't
I think
worry.
it'd be a great idea.
I'll be fine.
I think it'd be a great idea. Okay. Chris has been very passionate about a specific quarterback in the league the last few years, and that guy's name is Trevor Lawrence. Now, the Jags are 3-1 after beating the San Francisco 49ers this week, so you can talk about Trevor Lawrence if you want to. I'd honestly like to hear your opinion on it. But what do you think about Jacksonville as a whole, and then Trevor Lawrence as well? Because I don't know if this 3-1 start was anticipated by everyone who watches NFL.
I think this is almost like the Seahawks' 3-0 start last year.
Okay.
They played bums.
Okay.
And I'm not discrediting the 49ers at all. Obviously, they've had a pretty.
I mean, they're a 3-1
They're
squad as well.
okay. There are a 3-1 squad, but they rolled in against Jacksonville with a quarterback who was coming off of injury.
True.
Maybe wasn't moving as well. Clearly, he didn't perform like how we usually see Brock Purdy perform. Maybe he got that rust on him. Maybe something was going on. Jacksonville has looked good, okay? And I don't think it's because of Trevor Lawrence by any means. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's starting caliber, but he's definitely not producing up to the generational prospect hype that he was,
True.
once touted with. But he's been good enough, and I think that the defense has been amazing. I didn't expect that at all. I'm not sure about you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're 3-1, and coupling that with how bad C.J. Stroud and the Texans have looked. I mean, the Jaguars could run away with this division.
Runaway might be an exaggeration, just because I think the Colts are a legit squad.
I'm fading it, but I understand. I understand.
No, but I think you're right. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the reason why this team is winning either. But he's also not losing them games, because before it was like, what is Trevor Lawrence even doing out there? And there's a lot of things that you can point at. I don't think he's ever been surrounded with weapons. It's like this. He's basically like in the same position, in my opinion, as Lamar, but like his weapons are like even a step further down. Like, we're taking Henry over ETN. We're taking, well, I don't know if we're taking Flowers over BTJ, but BTJ has been a little up and down this year. It's still too early in his career to kind of make those comparisons, but who's been Trevor Lawrence's wide receiver one since he's gotten into the league? I think his best receiver, consistent-wise,
Christian Kirk.
And that says absolutely nothing. So, again, we can make
Calvin Ridley, man.
Calvin Ridley, who is being a liability somewhere else now, in the same division, coincidentally.
Oh, yeah.
You can point a lot of fingers at it, but I think the fact of the matter is, I think Trevor Lawrence the ceiling has kind of dropped on him, not because of himself, but because of the people around him. Like, they've kind of limited him in a sense of how much he can develop, in my opinion. And I think where he's at in his career, I think you would like to see more, considering how much you're paying him, but realizing too that you're winning right now, and he's making plays. It's not like, you know, you're going out there and he's got 230 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Like, he's throwing touchdowns, you know, and he's making the right decisions. And as long as he keeps putting this team in a position to win games, then they're going to keep doing so.
I will say, against the 49ers last Sunday, he did throw a pick on a dagger drive. That was like one of the worst picks I've ever seen. That somehow got called back on a defensive holding. That was on the other side of the field. So, you know, doesn't count on the stat sheet, but I'll remember that forever.
No, right. But then that's the type of things that I see too, and I'm like, okay, you'll never see the great quarterbacks in the league do that now, penalty or not on the field. You just would never see them making that throw, and he got away with one there. I totally agree with you, and that's what makes me think that, okay, Trevor Lawrence is not going to be the quarterback that I think because of the small details like that. But I don't think he's incapable of being a quarterback that can lead this team to the playoffs, win a division. I still am holding out hope for that because I think this is the most competent coach he's had. And crazy enough, I think this is also the most talented team he's had around him.
I agree.
I feel like this offensive line, although not great, is solidified for once in his career. Like, you know who your left tackle is going to be throughout the whole season. You know who your other tackle is going to be throughout the season. And there's hope with Brian Thomas Jr. There's hope with Travis Hunter. Travis Etienne is looking good. Bayshall Tootin is looking
Etienne has been looking good.
Like, all of these players, in my opinion, are trending the Jaguars upwards. And that's what makes me believe that Trevor Lawrence will transcend as well into close to what we think he could have been.
Shout out Brenton Strange. He's been great.
Brenton Strange. Solid. He's just not the first.
Here's my thing with Trevor Lawrence, which is not his fault. I think when you have a quarterback that's good enough, the reason why they're bringing surplus value to the franchise is because they're not making star money. So, like, the Vikings last year, they weren't paying Sam Darnold that much, so they were able to build around, I guess not even build around him, per se, but he was making similar money to, you know.
That's true.
But this guy's making $55 million, and he's expected to be playing like that,
right.
So there's always going to be that shroud of the cloud above him.
And that's why the quarterback conversation is so tough, because the alternative is you don't pay these guys. Right? And I think there's other guys in this category. I'd go Kyler Murray. I don't think Kyler Murray helps his team win. Right? He's in that same spot. I think Tua is in that same spot. I think that these guys are talented, but they don't do anything to put their team over the top that warrants you to give them $50, $55, $60 million. Now, I know some people would throw Dak in that conversation. We'll get to Dak in a little bit. But I think Dak, he's shown in his career that you put the right people around him, and, you know, we're not asking for top tier talent. Like, this guy can produce. This guy has put this team in position time and time and again to win games, and the defense has failed him more times than not in his career. Like, we're talking about a guy who has always kind of been in the MVP conversation, never a legit candidate for it, but he's always played well enough. And it's like, okay, there's games where I can say, like, hey, this is why we gave you the money. I can't say the same for the other three guys that we've just talked about. And that's why I agree with you in that spot where that price tag really changes the way that you evaluate the player.
Quick sidebar. Since Kyler Murray, how would you rank the first overall quarterbacks that have been drafted?
Wow. So you have Kyler, you have
Burrow,
Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence,
Trevon Walker, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams.
And Cam Ward.
And then Cam Ward. You know, we're going to leave Cam Ward off of this one, just for the sake of it.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, Joe Burrow, I don't think this is debatable. He's been the best one since 2019. And it's just really tough because I think, look, this is the reality. All of these guys go to really terrible teams. But the time that they get there, what does the infrastructure look like? That's a huge thing, right? Because, okay, we can look at a team like Carolina where Bryce Young gets there and Frank Reich is the head coach. Dated, you know, not very inspiring. There's not a whole lot going on there. Whereas you go to Houston and at least, okay, the team was bad last year, but there are fresh faces in the building, right? You have a new GM who actually brought in some talent that they weren't doing before. You have an innovative defensive head coach that is going to help your young quarterback out by providing them the opportunity to stay in games because of how good that defense is. And then you even look at last year, right? Caleb Williams with Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus, I don't even know how he became a head coach because nothing about him was like, yeah, this is the guy that you want leading your team. But then you look right down at the second overall pick and you see Jaden Daniels, but he goes to Dan Quinn, which I know Dan Quinn ended his tenure off with the Falcons really poorly, but he's still a coach that led a team to a Super Bowl. He had very, very good defenses in Dallas. Like, we're not going to act like he just got this job because he has the experience from before. He knows what he's doing defensively. And Cliff Kingsbury, although I wasn't a fan of him, it really looks like now with the way that Jaden Daniels is playing, and even Marcus Mariota when he's been thrown in, that it looks like it was a Kyler problem. But this is a former NFL head coach that you have now strictly as an offensive coordinator, the thing that he specializes in. I think the environment that the quarterback is placed in, the infrastructure, the people around him, I think that that's honestly the most important thing. And that's why it's hard, because I think all of these guys are talented. We know that. And more times than not, they are drafted where they should be, but the circumstances that they're put in, I think, dictate the outcome of their career more than anything else. And that's why it's hard. Because
So what is your final ranking here?
My final ranking
1
here,
through 5.
1 through 5. Wow. I would go
We'll just call it by value and talent at the pick.
I would go, Burrow 1. I think I'd go Trevor Lawrence 2. But again, that doesn't say much. I think 3, I'd go Caleb Williams. Over Kyler Murray. I have more faith that Caleb Williams is going to do more than Kyler Murray has done in his entire career within the next 2 years. After that, I think I'd go Kyler Murray. And then the last one is Bryce Young. Yeah.
So I was doing some proof of points.
Mhm.
Clearly, we don't share the same sentiment of rankings.
Okay.
I was going to have Kyler Murray as number 2 and
interesting.
say it's sad that he's number 2. But you're putting him 4. Sad that Trevor Lawrence is number 2.
I mean, again,
I don't think any of these players should have been there after the first pick. I think these were all the correct picks at
They
the first
were.
overall pick.
they were.
But what's wrong? Why have these players not
Mhm.
been generational and franchise changing like they're meant to be besides
Mhm.
Joe Burrow?
Yeah, I mean, and like that's the thing. I think Joe Burrow. I think when you compare all these quarterbacks, and it's easy to say now in hindsight, but there's a reason why we have the conversation that this is one of the greatest college football teams of all time because of Joe Burrow. Like, of course, he had studs all around him, but Joe Burrow was fantastic. And that's not to say that these other guys weren't, but you never felt like they were going to just take over the game and like they were better than everyone else on the field, you know? Kyler Murray didn't win a national championship. Bryce Young never won a national championship. Caleb Williams didn't even sniff it, you know? And it's just like Joe Burrow, I think when it comes down to like just like the mentals and just the talent itself, it's untouchable compared to these other guys. Like, he is through and through better than all of these quarterbacks in every way imaginable. But yeah, I mean, again, like when you rank the guys from 2 to 5, it's honestly like, who cares? Because honestly, none of them have really done anything, and it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. You know, we're ranking what would you even say, like top 25 quarterbacks in the league?
Yeah, I would say
Maybe even lower than that.
yeah, a top 3,
Yeah,
and then
everyone else.
yeah,
Is,
everyone else.
everyone else, pretty much, right? It's like it doesn't say much if you're a top 25 quarterback in the league, but
But moving on to someone who didn't get drafted first overall.
yeah.
Slightly, maybe not slightly, outside of the first overall pick. Jackson Dart made his debut last weekend with the Giants. Russell Wilson gluing himself to the bench. And Jackson Dart goes out with a win.
Yep, he does. And look, I think when you want to look at this from a defensive standpoint too, they did him a lot of favors.
Oh, absolutely.
The defense played well, which we're gonna get to that in a little bit as well. But Jackson Dart, look, I don't know how you felt about him. I don't like Jackson Dart, at least as a prospect. I was not a fan of him at all. Name value for sure. I mean, when your last name's Dart and you're a quarterback, you would think this guy is going to be fantastic. And he has the opportunity to do so. But you can tell that they are doing this in the interest of winning, but they're also trying to protect him. There was a lot of calls that I felt like were really conservative with him.
Absolutely.
They were running the ball in situations where I think more times than not you would love to trust your quarterback, you know, on a 3rd and goal from the 4-yard line. You know, why are we giving it to Scattaboo? why are we running QB power 7 times throughout the game? I understand that's part of his skill set, but I feel like there's much more favorable outcomes if you pass the ball in those situations. And so you can see that they're slowly trying to ease him in, and it's good because I think with him, as much as I disliked him coming into the draft, you can tell that there's just a different energy now that he's a starting quarterback, and you kind of just feel like he's got more of this desire to win. I didn't really feel that with Russell Wilson. Like, Russell Wilson's out there. It's another opportunity for him, and it just feels like he was kind of just going through the motions.
Yeah,
and a lot of people point towards that 4th and goal against Kansas City where he throws out the back of the end zone. You can't be doing that.
Not to mention, he did that on 2nd down and 3rd down.
Right. Like, you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that because what does that say to the rest of the team? Like, again, these are the type of things that I love to talk about with quarterbacks because you can't measure these things. You don't see these things show up on the stat sheet. But it does matter because, it's like, why are the guys going to run routes? If it's 4th and goal, they're just going to be like, oh, yeah, well, Russ is just going to throw it away.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, give us a chance to win this game. Give me a reason to believe that you can lead us to victory. And I think Jackson Dart, on several occasions throughout the game, showed that. He didn't go out there and look startled at all. He looked like he's been there before, and he felt confident enough to operate this offense. And granted, while it wasn't the prettiest debut performance of all time, he didn't really mess up. I think there were some times where he could have easily just taken sacks, but he throws the ball away, or he tries to extend the play with his legs. Maybe trying to do too much at times, but again, it shows me like, okay, this guy wants it. He's going to give his effort on every single play. And that's just the juice that the Giants need because it's been a dreadful franchise for the last few years. So I don't know if this is going to be no, I do know. This won't be a playoff team come the end of the year. But can they feel confident about Jackson Dart being their quarterback? Absolutely. Absolutely. But 1 week doesn't define the season, so it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this season plays out for Dart and the Giants.
No, and your main, I wouldn't say maybe not complaints, but your knocks on Jackson Dart, they weren't really shown last week.
No, they weren't.
Maybe you said they were protecting him a little bit. Definitely conservative play calling, but he's someone who sees a window and like he's gonna try to get it in there, even though it might not be the right choice.
Yeah. And
they hopefully are gonna try to coach that out of him. But I also do want to see like that's kind of why he was drafted. That arm talent, that desire, that the need to win. So a player that the teammates will rally around and fight for. I'd like to see them slowly try to unlock it throughout the year because he's not a game manager. He's not a boring guy, and he will make mistakes. So I'd like the Giants to let him make mistakes.
Yeah, and this is a conversation too because we knew that this is one of the teams where it was like, it's just a matter of when is Jackson Dart going to play this season because we knew it was going to happen. Their schedule is not favorable at all, and I remember, people were kind of having the conversation like, oh, why would you throw him in that game because he's going up against a good defense and stuff. Like, whenever he's ready, just put him in there. It doesn't matter who the opponent is because, whether he plays a crappy opponent 1 week, he's going to play a really good one the next week in all likelihood, And if you're going to just keep, like, babying him in that way and just trying to, put him in a favorable spot that way, I didn't really understand the logic in that thinking because I think you always just have to go out there and put the guy who's going to give you the best chance to win out there. And that's just how it goes. If you're going to draft this guy in the first round, don't be like, oh, we need to start him against Baltimore's defense so he can put up good numbers and we can all feel good about him. No, you draft somebody in the first round, you have to be convicted enough to say, hey, we can put this guy up against any defense in the league and he's going to win us the game.
Okay, but, on the other hand, I do understand protection.
Oh, I understand.
What if Jackson Dart, you are the Cincinnati Bengals and you're watching Jake Browning get...
That's,
he's getting 2 free rushers on a 3-man rush.
Right.
And you're like, maybe we'll sit this guy a little bit.
Right. But see, I think that's the situation that McCarthy's in right now with the Vikings.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the situation that they're in. Like, I think their problems came from the quarterback, so they knew, like, okay, and they were already feeling really good about him in the preseason, So it was just like, all right, like, let's go now. If everything that you're saying is true, he should be playing. And that's exactly what they did. They get him in a lot sooner than people thought. Because I remember through the offseason, I was watching videos and people were like, oh, we're going to project when all these quarterbacks are going to start. And they all kind of had him penciled in at like week 7 or week 8 to get a favorable matchup. And I was just like, why is that?
For McCarthy?
No. For Jackson Dart.
Okay.
And I was saying, why is that? Why is the opponent the reason why he's playing? And not just the fact that he's just playing well, And so, I don't know. He earned it, though. He earned it this week. You got to feel good for him. He got the win. On the flip side, though, for the Chargers, this might be the biggest WTF of the week. Like, what are we doing? I mean, we're talking about a team that's 3-0, has looked dominant in every phase, and then just completely falls flat on their face. And the one thing that I didn't like, because I think their defense still played good for what it was, right? Like, you know Jackson Dart's skill set, but you really don't know what they're going to bring to the table with him. It's a new offense. There's so many quarterback runs. He ran it a lot on third down, which I don't think that they were anticipating. The defense played well, but this offense just became so one-dimensional again, where I think the first 3 weeks they were so reliant on Justin Herbert and him passing the ball and being efficient, and this week it seemed like it was the opposite. It seemed like Justin Herbert wasn't good. He wasn't good this week, and Omarion Hampton just had a game, you know, and it was like, where was this from Omarion the first 2 weeks, and then where was the Justin Herbert from the last 3 weeks? It's just like, there needs to be a balance. You can't be losing to an 0-3 New York Giants team that is starting their rookie quarterback. Like, if we're talking about a team that has aspirations to win the Super Bowl, to win the AFC West, which we know has been very difficult to do if your name is not the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to win games like this. And this is the reason why we always pivot back to this discussion about Justin Herbert, who I think is one of the most highly debated quarterbacks since he's been in the league, is because of games like this. How are you, like, it's not like the Giants are a slump defense. They're a good unit. They have a really good front, and I think they have some good pieces in the back end with, like, Deontay Banks and Drew Phillips. But you can't be throwing 2 picks like that, because ultimately those 2 interceptions costed them the game, in my opinion.
If you squint, like you see Phillip Rivers.
That's what I'm saying. And I've had this conversation before where I don't know if Justin Herbert has elevated this franchise since he's been here. You could argue that he's more talented than Phillip Rivers. You can argue that. I'm not saying he is. You can argue that. But I don't think he's taken this team to new heights. I don't think he has. I think that they're in the same spot they were with Phillip Rivers at quarterback. And it's tough to say because I think there is so much more in store for Justin Herbert. But these games just kind of bring us back down to earth and say, okay, now I know why I felt the way I felt about Justin Herbert for these last few years. Because he's doing this against the 0-3 Giants. I don't know. What do you think?
I completely disagree about, the franchise-altering thing. By the way, I do think he's taken them much better than they used to be.
I don't know about that.
We'll see how the Chargers progress, because maybe this was the perfect game to lose. Championship teams need adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how often do we... maybe it's because it's hard, but, how often do we see undefeated teams go all the way? How often do we see undefeated teams? But
True.
I hope that they went in the locker room and they were like, we just lost to a rookie quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't won this year yet, and like what are we doing? And we'll see if that motivates them to say, hey guys, we're so much better than this, we're talented, and then we're gonna start winning, or if that's like, man, we just lost and like, what are we doing? I'm gonna go play video games until 3 a.m. and go to the bar, something like that. But clearly that wasn't an issue for Amon-Ra.
No, I think this team, I think they're gonna go about this the right way. And
I have confidence too.
And it could just be a fluke game. And look, I'll say this too because I've always been bullish on Justin Herbert. I think he's having a great year so far. Okay, like this game was not good by any means, but he has had a good year, and this was just a bad game. And I totally expect them to pick it up, come next week. But again, like you watch a game like this, and then it kind of makes you go back to the old ways that we've thought about the Chargers over the last 5 years. And it makes you wonder, because I had a level of confidence before where I was like, damn, this team could do it. They really could. But when you have a game like this, now I'm kind of back to reality and saying, okay, maybe I do know where this team is at. Maybe the ceiling isn't as high, but I don't think it's time to overreact yet. It's one game. But if these things start piling up, like you said, then we might, have some concerns. Okay, transitioning now to another team in LA. The LA Rams and the Indianapolis Colts. What a game this was. And who knows what the outcome is if A.D. Mitchell doesn't fumble that football, because they would have been up by 2 touchdowns at some point in the game. And, how does LA manage that? There's a lot of scenarios you can play. But he did fumble the ball. They didn't score. And the Rams end up winning. Look, these are 2 really good football teams. And I think even though the Colts didn't win this game, I think it said a lot about where they're at, because I think there were a lot of people who were doubting them, saying, well, they played the Titans, and what does that mean if they're putting up 40 points? You got bailed out by a leverage call against the Denver Broncos, yada, yada, yada. But you go to LA and you play the way that they did. And I think LA, you want to talk about a well-rounded football team, and I think they have the MVP candidate right now in either Matthew Stafford or Puka Nacua, right? And you look the way that they did, this is a real squad that they have there in Indianapolis this year. And it's time that we stop questioning them, because even though they didn't win this game, I feel good enough to say, oh man, whether this team is down or whether this team is clicking on all cylinders, I believe in them to go out there and win a football game no matter who it is. I think the Rams are one of those teams that is the measuring stick in the league. And on the opposite end, the Rams, I have them winning the NFC this year. I have them making it to the Super Bowl.
Me too.
Yeah, and they're living up to those expectations. And it is incredible to see what Puka Nacua is doing now that he has a real dominant receiver on the opposite end. Not to say that he never had that with Cooper Kupp, but early on, Cooper Kupp was still that guy, and last year, Cooper Kupp didn't do him any favors. Now you have Devontae on the other side, and you can really see what Puka Nacua is capable of when he is the focal point of the offense, and he also has some attention taken away from him on the opposite side of the field. There's a lot to like about the LA Rams right now. I don't think this is a team that's getting hot too early. This is a team that is well coached. They know what they're doing. They're talented at every level, and I fully expect them to make a deep run this year.
How did they let the Rams get Devontae Adams?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Come on.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, the Rams, they're so good. They have a bunch of good names on their defense. Mm-hmm. Maybe no superstar. I don't want to say no superstar. I like Jared Verse a lot, but is he changing a game? Maybe not yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that offense has been clicking.
Mm-hmm.
And the Colts hung in there with them. Daniel Jones, he hasn't been like a gunslinger by any means, but he's been a really efficient game manager. And he only threw, his first interception, slightly underthrown.
Mm-hmm.
That's Daniel, it's come on, that's okay. Then that second interception was maybe unnecessary also,
mm-hmm.
but it was desperation time, and I understand that that one really shouldn't count. He played well. He should have had another touchdown on the board. And Jonathan Taylor was running okay, and I think Jonathan Taylor has begun to show the league again that he is one of the best one of the best running backs in the league, like he was back in 2021. There's a lot to like with his offense. Alec Pierce is actually really good. It's a shame that he wasn't able to play in that game with that concussion, but if A.D. Mitchell can hang onto the ball, he's pretty talented.
Right, and this team could still be undefeated.
Perhaps. And I'm glad that they hung in there. They showed a lot of heart,
mm-hmm.
and hopefully they can just continue on, because the Rams are a really solid team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? Indianapolis and Jacksonville, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because I think these were two teams with a lot of question marks, because it was okay, for the Colts, who was going to be the quarterback, and then Jacksonville, how is it going to look under Liam Cohen now? Like you said, it's up for grabs. And I really don't know who's going to win. And it's going to be interesting to see when those two teams play each other, because I think that those could be division champion altering games. I don't know. I feel very 50-50 about those two going up head-to-head against each other. And it's going to be a more interesting matchup than we've seen in recent years. So the AFC South could be entertainment value this year. But again, we feel confident about both of these teams. Let me ask you this. Do you feel confident enough? Let's just say the Colts do make the playoffs. Do you feel confident enough in them making a run?
Would they have won the division? Or
okay,
are they coming
let's do a scenario where they do win the division and where they don't.
I do think the AFC is kind of wide open in terms of wildcard spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think the NFC is very hard to make it.
Mm-hmm.
But the AFC is you got your superpowers,
mm-hmm.
and then you got your diddly-doo-dads after that.
Yep.
I don't believe that they're winning the division.
Okay.
I think the Jaguars are going to do it. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to fluke his way into another playoff berth. But the Colts have looked really good.
Yeah,
and, if some of their defensive pieces can fire off, and Laiatu Latu, I saw him last week. He looked real good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If he could just get in there, man. I'll cut that out. I don't know. I don't know if I like the Colts in the playoffs. They'd have to be playing maybe the Bills. I can't even say the Ravens anymore, right? but maybe the Ravens. I'd like to think that they can make a resurgence. I think this team is too young, but you never know in the playoffs.
Okay.
You never know.
We will see. Again, still very early on, but
If I had money on it, I would not bet on the Colts.
I wouldn't either. Okay, staying within the AFC South, Brian Callahan and the Titans are 0-4. And they're not the only 0-4 team out there. But he's been there for a bit now. Kellen Moore, it's his first year. He doesn't really necessarily have a quarterback. And Aaron Glenn, it's his first year with the New York Jets, and he doesn't necessarily have a quarterback either. Both are 0-4 as well. But Callahan was there last year when they made the decision to draft Will Levis. He was also there with the decision to draft Cam Ward. Now, I don't think that they've done enough to build the team to give them a chance to win. But despite that, it's not even inspiring. Like, there's not a good thing that I can say going on for the Tennessee Titans right now. Sure, their defense looks good, but that's not what Callahan was brought in for. Callahan was brought in to develop whatever quarterback was coming in there. And it looks like he's failing both of them right now, and failing them miserably. And I feel like it's time to go, because I don't believe that at this stage he's gonna just turn it around miraculously. I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think that there is enough innovation coming from their side, and I don't think that there is a vision for bringing in talent here. Now, you could obviously point to the GM, but let's not be blind to the fact that the GM and the head coach talk about these things because they're like, hey, I would love to see this player on our team because I think he fits the scheme well. And all the players that they brought in have not made this team better. And it was brainless to bring in Cam Ward, not because Cam Ward's trash, but because who else were you going to take? Like, Cam Ward was by and far the best quarterback in this class. Callahan, he's got to go. He's just got to go. That's really the point I'm trying to make. I don't think he makes this team better, and I don't see him making this team better down the line. But what do you think?
I disagree. You look at this offense, it is disgusting in Tennessee right now. And yeah, sure, maybe Callahan's not doing everything he can to be helping this team, but it's a first-year quarterback, that has nobody to throw to. I don't think they have any playmakers out there. Callahan really is a bum nowadays. Like, he's actually trash.
He's trash.
Alec, he's a future bet, and Chika Okonkwo is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't have an excuse for putting up 0 points in a game, but I don't think that this is all on Callahan. I do think that he will probably get fired by the end of the year, but I do think it would be a mistake. It's just a bad situation that he's in right now.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Let me rephrase the question. What do you lose if you fire Callahan?
Nothing. Maybe cap penalty or money penalty. Signing bonus.
That's kind of how I see it. Like, you don't lose anything from firing him. Like, I feel like you're just holding on to him and you're waiting for him to have that talented team. And I think even if he did have that talented team, I don't know if they do anything.
What if they hired Tom Brady?
Oh, if they had Tom Brady?
Head coach.
As head coach? Well, Tom Brady also said he wanted Geno instead of Darnold, and
yeah, he's also an owner, right? He can't be a head coach.
Right. So I mean, it's like, let's not glaze him too much. But anyway,
what does Aaron Glenn have to do to buy a win?
What does Aaron?
The Jets have been so close to winning.
They have been
so many times. They just can't get a win.
I mean, I don't think Justin Fields is necessarily
maybe not against the Bills, but
yeah. I don't think Justin Fields has necessarily been the problem. Like, he's definitely had some really good moments so far.
Some great moments.
And they're utilizing him, I think, to his potential at this point in his career. I think what they're lacking, and it's not a lack of talent like the Titans. I think this team is missing, like, legit superstars. I think that's what it is, because you look across that offensive line, there's good young pieces, but there's no one to, really get excited about. I think Garrett Wilson's a good player, but, he's only as great as his quarterback is, right? It's unfortunate, but that position is relying on it more than any other. And you look on the defense, Sauce is not that superstar that, we're accustomed to him being. I think he's still a great cornerback, but it's not someone where you're, like, game-changing, I think Quinnen Williams is that too, but again, there's just so many other young players around this team that I think they need just more veteran presence, and they just need more superstar abilities on both sides of the football.
How about this? A 4th-round pick for Chris Olave to the Jets.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because Justin Fields is still the quarterback.
I think he's been doing well.
I mean, I think he's been doing well.
Did he have 30 passing yards in the first half on Monday? Yeah. But he ended with like 260, so.
No, right. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. Justin Fields hasn't been playing bad, but it's just like, I don't know if bringing in another receiver solves that problem. Like, we've seen Justin Fields throughout the course of his career. We kind of know that he's one of the better running quarterbacks in the league, but his decision-making still takes more time than you'd like. And the arm talent, I think, is solid, but that windup is still atrocious.
It's bad.
You know? So it's like, I don't know. I don't see a benefit in that, especially when that 4th-round pick at this stage is looking closer to a 3rd because of how bad they are.
Do you see Justin Fields being a starter next year for any team?
It could be the Jets again.
I'd like to see him stay.
It could be the Jets again because I think if he continues to play the way that he does, I don't think they can really point to him and say, hey, like, you're the reason why we're losing games. You're a liability. We have to get rid of you. Now, they're also going to look at it from the fact where it's like, okay, you're also not winning us games either. But I think he's going to put himself in a spot, if he continues to play the way that he has, for them to say, hey, if there isn't somebody that we absolutely love out there, we're going to just roll with you one more year, you know?
So the Jets suck.
Mm-hmm.
They get a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm. But who are the quarterbacks on the board?
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, there's a lot of season left in college.
Yeah.
Quarterback, or Makai Lemon,
like another
superstar wide receiver.
Right, and that's the thing.
Or superstar like tackle.
Well,
or guard.
I don't know because you have Olu Fashanu, you have Armand Bambu,
yeah,
right? Like they've invested in those guys. Like they've done a good job because I think that those are 2 really solid players.
Shout out Mekhi Becton, man.
Oh yeah, Mekhi Becton. Hey, he's a good guard now, but elsewhere. But it's all there's too much scenarios because it's only been 4 weeks. How does Justin Fields look like through the course of the year? This is a great discussion for draft season, and then you look at the draft itself. I mean, who are the top prospects? It's still way too early to say.
All the top prospects have not lived up.
Yeah, they haven't, and that's why I think there is still
except Makai Lemon.
A lot to be still a lot to be figured out with all of those aspects of that question. Okay, we have 2 more topics that we want to dive into: the Packers and the Cowboys. I kind of had to backtrack on my words when Chris and I were preparing this because I was like, oh, I feel like we kind of know where these teams are at. But then I realized that, like, you know, maybe we don't because, like, I felt very confident in the Packers 2 weeks ago. But then you drop one to the Browns, and then you tie one to the Cowboys. And then the Cowboys, it's like, they're at a weird spot. What are they, 1-2-1 right now? And it's like, man, this team is, like, a few plays away from being, like, 3-1, you know? And it's like, I think they like Schottenheimer. I think even though they aren't winning games, the vibes are still good on that team.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, it just feels so much better opposed to when McCarthy was there. And I just feel like, you know, I mean, Jerry Jones is always going to be bickering in the corner over there, but it seems like it's kind of been compressed a little bit because everyone's more focused on what's happening with the team opposed to what Jerry has to say. I mean, who cares what he has to say at this point?
Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, upgrade our run stuff, and you know that pregame. You watched the pregame interview when he was on the panel. With,
Yeah.
Like, man, get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
Get back in the booth.
Yeah. And like so, like the Cowboys, and I think the fact that Dak is playing as good as he has made this team somewhat, not watchable, but like somewhat competitive. I'd say competitive because, I mean, they put up 40 points and they tied.
Yeah.
You know, like more times than not, when you put up 40 points in the NFL, you're winning that game, you know, and it's a different narrative because they didn't win, but it's not Dak's fault. Like, Dak played a good game. He played better than Jordan Love, too.
You know, I've always been a Dak supporter.
Yeah,
I'm not like a Cowboys fan, but people always write him off because, he has some bad performances in the playoffs sometimes.
Yeah, he has.
But he's a good quarterback. He's bordering on elite.
Yeah.
High end at the very least.
And I think part
maybe not elite. Okay, I'll take it back.
Yeah, maybe not elite. I understand what you're saying. Like, he's like a B+ quarterback.
He's a top 12.
He's top 12 B+ quarterback. And I think a lot of the reason why we haven't talked about him at that caliber recently is because he was dealing with injury last year, and he's dealt with some injury here and there, and there's been like big injuries. Like, it's not like, oh, you know, like he sprained his ankle, he's out for 3 weeks. Like, these have been things that have kept him sidelined for a long time, and there's always that phase of time where you just kind of forget how important Dak is to that Cowboys team. And again, like week in and week out this year, he's shown his value, and he's shown people why he's being paid the big dollars. But again, they're 1-2-1, and that's why we sit here with the same conversation. It's unfortunate, but that's just how NFL media rolls.
And I could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't believe Siobhan Rebel has played a snap yet. He's still recovering from ACL.
I don't believe so either.
I know they were rushing him back, but I don't think he's played yet.
I don't believe so either.
So hopefully he can help out, because those corners are toast.
Oh, yeah. They're so bad.
Incredible ball hawks.
Yeah.
But when they don't get it, man, they are bad.
Yep, that's why they brought back Deron Bland instead of Micah Parsons.
If they had a good pass rush, maybe they would look better. Maybe that's why they look good. You never know. But Kenny Clark is stopping the run. Except not yesterday. Or not this week.
Sure. I mean,
he was alright.
Kenny Clark out there is the reason why the Packers didn't score 42 points, instead of 40. Right? He's that much of a difference maker on this team. Anyway, look, two teams that I think off to bumpy starts to begin the season. But these are two teams that I could definitely see in the playoffs. There's a lot that needs to get figured out for both teams, but they've also shown promise of being good teams this year. So I think that there is still a lot to be determined with those two teams. Now, the final conversation that we're going to have revolves around the Cincinnati Bengals, because the Bengals, they were another one of those teams rolling through the first 2 weeks of the season. It was like, okay, Joe Burrow is back, but now he's not. He's hurt again, and he's going to be gone for the majority of the season, and that has brought up the conversation of the Bengals potentially trading for a quarterback. Now, reports came out just minutes before we started recording this video that Zach Taylor said that this team believes in Jake Browning. They're going to roll with him as a starting quarterback. You can believe that as much as you want.
It's going to have to say that.
You can disagree with that as much as you want. What is your take? What do you think the Bengals should do in this situation?
So we saw a bunch of Jake Browning last year, and he was really good. I mean, I wouldn't say like really good, but he was really good,
For a backup.
For a backup, he was actually okay for like a starter too. I've watched a majority of the Bengals games this year since Joe Burrow's been out, just because I have T. Higgins on all of my fantasy teams. I don't think Jake Browning, he definitely doesn't have that same magic that he did last year, but he's also getting zero protection, which is exactly what Joe Burrow was getting. Guys, why did you not upgrade that line? But I don't think a quarterback trade is going to help anything. You get 2 free rushers and a 3-man rush. How does that happen? What are they doing?
I don't know.
They didn't even get beat. They just weren't even blocking these dudes.
Nope.
And that was like, what, a third or fourth down?
Nope.
Man, like, come on, guys.
That's why it's like I don't understand like what their front office or their coaching staff, and I know their ownership is also very stingy with money as well. But there's no way you can watch Orlando Brown and be like, oh yeah, you know what, like let's bring him back for another year. That dude is just fat. He doesn't bring anything to the team. He is the tackle equivalent to Anthony Bradford at guard. These guys are just fat and provide no value being out there. They're just mass out there.
Bradford has been better this year. He has improved.
What does that mean?
He actually has been better.
What does that mean?
He
missed only 2 blocks a game instead of 5?
He's only ranked 67 out of 68 on PFF now.
Wow.
Yeah, there we go. No, I'm kidding. He's actually been pretty good this year. He's been okay. He's been pretty good.
Sure. My point is like, and your point too, like, you gotta start investing in the right things, and it's like it's not even rocket science. And here's the thing: it's not the fact that like they've tried and it just hasn't worked out. I mean, when you look across that line, who can you say like, oh yeah, they actually made a effort to improve this line? It's Amarius Mims, and that's it. Nobody else along that line is like, oh yeah, this was a marquee signing in free agency, or like, oh yeah, we went really high in the draft to make sure that this position attempted to solidify that position.
Because they spent $200 million on 3 dudes. T. Higgins, where you at, buddy? Where are you at?
It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
I think he led the team in receiving yards with like 35 on Monday. So
wow,
it's not his fault. It's really not his fault.
It's again, it doesn't make sense to me, because the reason why Joe Burrow got hurt in his rookie year was because of that offensive line, And it's just insane to me that they saw that happen during that period of time and just said, nah, it's okay. We'll overcome it.
What I think happened is they made the Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
through that bad line. They
Yep.
lost the Super Bowl
Yep.
because of the bad line,
Mhm.
and we're like, okay, so they can do it with
Yeah.
the bad line. So we're not going to ever upgrade it.
It is unbelievable.
And Joe Burrow is going to leave and win a Super Bowl somewhere else.
You think so?
Yep. LA.
Wow. The Rams.
Mhm.
Can you imagine Joe Burrow in the Rams?
I can.
My God, that's insane. That would actually be insane. Yeah, and I agree with Chris. Look, I don't think this team should be trading for a quarterback. There's been a lot of discussions about Russell Wilson. I've also seen Jameis Winston's name being thrown there from time to time. I just don't see it. Like, again, this is a team that their defense, it's similar to the Ravens. Like, a trade for anyone in this situation, I don't think there's a whole lot because these defenses are just not good enough to win a championship. I feel like the only time that you should be trading for players at the deadline is if you think that this guy is going to help you win a Super Bowl. Now, of course, it doesn't guarantee you win one, but like if either of these teams in Baltimore or Cincinnati attempt to make a trade this year for a player instead of shipping guys off, I don't view them as Super Bowl contending teams this year. Like I did before the season started, but a lot has changed since then, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm trying to think of, last year, one of the big deadline moves was Vikings trading for Cam Robinson, right? And it was like, okay, to solidify that offensive line because Christian Darrisaw got hurt. Like that's something that makes sense because the team was what, 6-1, 6-2 at that point, and it was like okay, like
2?
yeah, 6-2. I think they had lost to the Lions and the Rams.
Okay, I thought those happened in the second part of the year.
And it was like, okay, like this team can actually like legitimately be good this year, and they were 14-2 last year, and bringing in a guy like that actually helped them stay within the race for the number 1 seed in the NFC. But again, like, what is this gonna do? Help you crawl into the wild card if you're the Bengals? Like, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. So I agree, a trade should not happen. I know that you want to put your best 53 out there and of course your best quarterback option out there, but to go out and give up assets for what is essentially a band-aid move for 12 or 13 weeks of the season, I just don't see it.
Honestly, what I want to see, they do nothing. They shut down Joe Burrow for the rest of the year because he's only going to be back for 3 games.
That's true.
4 games.
It doesn't make sense.
Make sure he's ready for next year. Get a really good pick because of their horrible position.
Mm-hmm.
Draft a superstar,
Mm-hmm.
maybe on the line, maybe on the defense, and come back better next year.
The rate that it's going right now, there is no sense in bringing Joe Burrow.
Hey, and also Shamar Stewart's looking actually pretty okay.
Yeah, no,
He's really good.
That's why we talked about it in the preseason. I said, hey, Shamar Stewart, he does a little something. You never know.
He's been okay.
You never
He's
know.
been okay.
You never know. So this has been the first official CB1 show of the regular season. Chris officially off of IR, and hopefully it stays that way for the rest of the year. But yeah, there's a lot that is still left to be determined. We are only through the first quarter of the season, and still there's a lot that we just don't know a lot about for a lot of these teams. So it's going to be interesting. Stay tuned for the next few weeks. Chris, anything you want to throw out there before we close this thing out?
Cardinals might mess around and make the playoffs.
Really? All right, we'll see. With running back 3, Emery Demercado. Until the next week's video, we will see you all later. Peace.